Hey, hi, hello, and welcome back to another episode of watching and listening to me watch myself playing through video games. Today we are going to be doing a watch through of Metal Gear Solid. Let me get this on. I got the 12 ounce this time, the big boy. Oh yeah, that's the ticket. Still going with the sugar-free Red Bull. So, Metal Gear Solid. How to watch Metal Gear Solid. A lot of people like to make fun of this series for being too much of a movie and not having any gameplay. This was the game that, when I played this in 1998, something kind of clicked in my brain where I was like, okay, I am never going to not be a fan of video games for as long as I live, for the rest of my life. Let me try to put that another way. In 1998, I was 11 years old. I got a PlayStation for my 11th birthday in 1998, and I didn't play Metal Gear Solid right away. The games I was like obsessed with initially, there was like this PlayStation demo disc that had games like Intelligent Cube and Parappa the Rapper, which I was obsessed with replaying the same level over and over again. And then Resident Evil 2 in particular, I really enjoyed. And then it was the summer of 1999, I believe, when I discovered Metal Gear Solid. And I had never played anything like it. And this isn't going to be just me talking about Metal Gear Solid. I plan on also talking about Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 today, and kind of putting together like a one long supercut of like the opening hours of all three of these games. But this will just be a standalone. We can make this a standalone episode too for Metal Gear Solid. So not only will I be talking about Metal Gear Solid in this watch through, I will also be talking about the PlayStation and how I believe the PlayStation to be if not the best console of all time, like in the top 2, maybe top 3. I don't really see how you can make an argument where it's not the best console of all time. And I understand that's hierarchical and all that, and it doesn't really matter how we rank things, but you have to understand that the PlayStation was like so revolutionary, and it was like the first system that really made me realize that video games weren't just about fun. They could be about a number of different, feelings and experiences. So that we haven't technically opened the game. We haven't started the game yet. That was the opening kind of pre-game cutscene. So this takes us to the menu. And we're going to do one more thing before we actually hit new game. We're going to go, first of all, always kick the tires, check your options, fine-tune the experience to how you want it. Also, this pause menu here is not from Metal Gear Solid. It's from the emulation I'm using, because this was ported, I believe, by Konami and Blue Point Games. And so here I'm going into the debrief. And this is really weird because this is showing Solid Snake, the main character of Metal Gear Solid, as having blonde hair, which will be interesting for something later on, and that's his twin brother, Liquid Snake. So this is before Solid Snake begins his proper mission. He is being kind of interviewed by Colonel Campbell. These two guys go way back. So as you can see here, Solid Snake is retired from Foxhound, which was like a unit, I think kind of like funded by the CIA. I don't know. I'm playing kind of fast and loose with the historical accuracy here, but this is a video game, so this is just a debrief to give us more context into what is happening, because you might be one, because this for 1998, this is very dense from a storyline perspective. Hideo Kojima, who was the director of this game, was a huge fan of not only video games and movies. A lot of people like to make fun of him and say, oh, he should have been a movie director. He is also very literary, and we will get into this more specifically when we talk about Metal Gear Solid 2 later on. So what is happening here is Solid Snake is being asked to, or pretty much ordered to, come out of retirement as a super spy soldier to infiltrate a base in Alaska that has been overtaken by a terrorist unit, which also happens to be called Foxhound, and it is run by like six main bosses, like the six bosses you will face in the game. Here we go. 2 main mission objectives. One, we are to rescue the DARPA chief, Donald Anderson, and the president of Arms Tech, Kenneth Baker. So that's one of our goals. We need to rescue 2 guys who are both being held as hostages, high-end corporate type of dudes. And secondly, you're to investigate whether or not the terrorists have the ability to launch a nuclear strike. So the game is called Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear is the machine that is capable of launching a nuke. And that is what, there is this fear that this terrorist group, this evil terrorist group, Foxhound, has hijacked Metal Gear, which is on this base. So you see here, I'm fumbling through the menus, trying to figure out if there's any more context. Yep, I believe there is one more. And here's Solid Snake telling us that he no longer works for the government. I show this because I think this is very interesting, because it shows Solid Snake, he's such an interesting character, because he's not just this kind of like mindless soldier. He has a life. He has a very sad, introverted, humanless life. He just wants to live out the rest of his days with his dogs as a dog musher in Alaska, just kind of away from it all. And keep in mind, this predates Matthew McConaughey's character in True Detective by, 16 years? So yeah, like, it's talking about, I don't owe anything to my country, completely different from Big Boss, who Big Boss is Solid Snake's father, even though he was like technically cloned. It's a whole thing, and we'll get into it, but a lot of this game is also going to talk about the myth of Big Boss, who doesn't show himself in this game, but he is the main character of Metal Gear Solid 3, and he looks just like Solid Snake and Liquid Snake, but he is a human being, and Solid Snake is a clone of Big Boss, but he is also a natural-born soldier. And I don't know why. It looks like here Solid Snake has long blonde hair, which Liquid Snake, his twin brother, who was also cloned from the genetic remains of Big Boss, is he's the leader of the terrorist group, and he's the one that has blonde hair, and he speaks in a British accent. So I always thought it was weird here that Solid Snake is shown with long blonde hair when he never has long blonde hair ever again. I'm not sure if it's like the contrast with the image. So yeah, the Colonel is telling Snake, he's trying to like he's trying to like manipulate him into joining into this mission by saying, I'm trying to give you your purpose back in life, when Solid Snake is defiant and saying like, no, my purpose in life now is to be a dog musher in Alaska, away from all y'all crazy super soldier type of people who have been completely brainwashed by like the hegemony of the United States military industrial complex, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this is here where we're going to actually get into the game. So we're going to go ahead and here and do normal. And this thus begins the game proper. David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake, with the beautifully operatic soundtrack. Very cinematic opening. And we get some high angle shots from above of the place. A couple guards in the area. And Solid Snake is emerging out of the water, taking off his, what are those called? Scuba flippers? I don't know. And there's Liquid Snake, the blonde-haired twin brother of Solid Snake. And he goes up the elevator, which will be important because we are about to do the same thing when we are given the reins. So Snake is calling the Colonel on the codec here. Now, the codec would evolve throughout Metal Gear Solid. I really like how it's presented here, though. Like, look at the Colonel. He looks so just weathered and gruff. Like, look at those wrinkles on his face. And Snake is still in his scuba gear, which I think is a really nice touch. And Colonel giving us the frequency here, how to get in touch. And that says here on the PlayStation emulated, the PlayStation 5 version, touchpad, but that would of course be the select button. They changed the text for this port, but they did not change the audio, the voice samples, obviously. And here we are officially given reins. So we're officially given the reins. So you'll see here immediately, we can go in the water and pick up rations. Look at this camera view from in the water, and I'll try to get the sounds, edit the sounds in higher, where you could hear kind of like the underwater, what it feels like to be submerged in water. And then you can see here we could control, we could go into first person view mode, which I don't really do in this walkthrough, which I should have, but I didn't. But I show off here. As you can see, if you lean against the wall, you can see the guards coming. And notice the credits still splicing throughout here as we're playing. Now, if you notice the Soliton radar system on the top right, the blue cones mean you're fine. When they're red, that means either they're alerted or they hear a noise, and yellow means they're on caution and they're pursuing you. So the codec is, so our objective here is to reach the elevator, and then the Colonel will give us a call on the codec. Metal Gear Solid 2 would pretty much do this entire section again from the perspective of another character, but we'll get into that when I talk about Metal Gear Solid 2. So we need to just wait now for the elevator, the big giant freight elevator, to come down. I'm recording this audio after I initially did this because I forgot to record this section when I first did this. So you're hearing my voice at a later date. In my original, when I first played this and failed to capture footage for it, I got spotted and had to knock out the guards with punching. But you'll see later on I'll use punching in combat. So here I don't get caught at all. I do this pretty, perfectly because I'm quite a perfect human being. That's a joke. I have very low self-esteem. So yeah, you can just kind of wait here as the elevator comes. Not the most exciting or thrilling gameplay, I know. I apologize. But here, notice again, we can look and notice the guard. In Metal Gear Solid 2, in Metal Gear Solid 3, you could you could look around corners, which was revolutionary at the time. That guard almost caught me. So another guard will be coming down on this elevator. So now there will be 3 guards in this area. A nice touch by Kojima to make it more difficult for us, but all we need to do is get on the elevator and we're good. That'll initiate the cutscene. A lot of elevators in Metal Gear Solid, a lot of ladders. Kojima's really good at playing with elevation in interesting ways. I feel like a lot of games kind of get elevation wrong. It becomes too overwhelming and too much like homework, but here it's It's done really well. And now we get the iconic title screen with Hideo Kojima. This is like the moment when I remember when I first saw this, I was like, okay, like I am all in. Like, this is the rest of my life right here, for better or for worse. He's stripping off all the scuba gear, and we get to see his grotesquely pixelated face. People say the PlayStation 1 has not aged well, and I think that's a fair criticism. I know I mentioned earlier on that I think the PlayStation is the greatest console of all time, and I think even like aesthetically it has aged well, because I can't really explain why. Like, we live in a very dystopian kind of like sanitized cyberpunkian time, or I guess solar punk time. Well, China is, because they're actually using solar energy, whereas the United States is not really. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure why I went off on that tangent. But just look at this. Like, this is 1998. And again, my favorite, like probably my favorite video game of all time. Like the most influential video game, like for me personally. Final Fantasy VII came out a year before this too. So we were just like, we were getting spoiled.
Hasn't slowed you down one bit.
How's that sneaking suit working out?
I'm nice and dry, but it's a little hard.
I won a Nintendo 64 in a raffle. My orthodontist would have these raffles, and I won the one in which he was doing one for a Nintendo 64 and 4 controllers and a copy of Diddy Kong Racing. Excuse me. And I had a PlayStation already, but this was one of the worst moments of my life, like accidentally winning this Nintendo 64 that I didn't really want. And I ended up having some fun with the Nintendo 64, like with the wrestling games in particular, like the THQ Aki wrestling games, like WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy and WCW Revenge. But man, it just took away time and focus for the PlayStation for me. And just like, it's like PlayStation versus Nintendo 64, like it's not even a contest. Like, don't even try to tell me that the Nintendo 64 is in any way, shape, or form better. I mean, I get it. They say, what do they say? Different strokes for different folks. But man, if you like the Nintendo 64 over the Sony PlayStation, we're not going to have much in common. So a sense of urgency from the Colonel here. There's not like a timer in the game, but there is. Kojima's really good at establishing a sense of urgency. So now we're getting introduced to Mei Ling, where we can save using Mei Ling's frequency, which is 140.96. Mei Ling is very interesting in the Metal Gear Solid series. She would be absent in MGS2 and MGS3, and then make a return in MGS4 because, MGS4 was just like basically fanfic designed to like placate every single fan possible of the series, because they brought back every single character. And you can see here, Snake is such a flirt. He flirts with Naomi too. Yeah, it's a little sexist, but man, it like really increases the charm of this game. Like, I was just blown away. I was a very awkward, antisocial teenager when I played this game, but like seeing Solid Snake and seeing somebody I like, this is cringe to admit, but kind of like look up to, like unironically look up to, as like this bastion of like coolness. I'm sure I stole a couple of his lines when trying to talk to women, which I wouldn't recommend doing if you're trying to. Tim Rogers has a really good method for hitting on a woman. He says you shouldn't hit on a woman until she wipes something off of your face. Once she wipes something off your face, then you know you're good and you can start hitting on a woman. But before then, don't even try. Don't even bother.
radar isn't affected by the weather, but if you're
So the codec and the Salaton radar, I believe the codec does too. It gets jammed in certain areas of this facility.
You won't be able to use it in an
So that means like when the radar is when you're in an area with bad frequency, you can't use your radar. It'll say jamming where the Salaton radar is, and you can't call anybody on the codec.
We're here to back you up, so call if you need some information or advice.
Mei Ling also gives us some like
In charge of your mission data.
philosophical advice when we page her to or codec her to save the game, which I think is really cool because like Solid Snake, he's a very tough guy, but he's overwhelmed and he is a human being, well, a cloned human being, going through this like really intense, arduous situation where he's got to like take on all of these guys like Die Hard style alone, and
In one piece, maybe I'll let you do a strip search on me.
and his support here, like the Colonel and
Sorry to disappoint you, but I did manage to smuggle out my
and Naomi and Mei Ling are here to like give him an emotional support. So Snake's not just calling them for help; he's calling them for like emotional support because this is very dangerous and very lonely. So there's that too. And he acts like he's this scruff, tough guy from Alaska who doesn't need people. He just needs his dogs.
It's the fastest way, but there's too much risk of being spotted by the enemy. I can't just knock on the door and ask them to let me in.
There we go with more jargon. They're armed with 5.56s and pineapples. So 5.56s, I guess, is like some kind of AK-47 or automatic type of weapon, and pineapples would be like a grenade. I didn't know grenades were called pineapples until I played Metal Gear Solid. Again, like Kojima loves his like militaristic jargon. And on the surface, it might seem like, he's very pro-military. He's very pro, like, Second Amendment and all this stuff. But he's quite a pacifist when you actually, like, get into these games and you, like, start... like, when you just watch these games and you watch the cutscenes unfold, you see, like, how much of a pacifist he actually is. So here we are. We are given back control to Solid Snake. Still going with the top-down controls, highly polygonal. You have this base here with these spotlights. We have an item in the middle there, which we can go after if we're feeling so bold. But if we get caught by those lights, we will be spotted by enemies. As you can see, I'm still... I got caught right away. And that gives me 3 shaft grenades. Shaft grenades are used to... mess with the security cameras. So if you throw a shaft grenade, security cameras will be confused because it creates like an electronic jam. This game is Hideo Kojima loves himself some technological lingo. There's a lot of like jargon in his games because he does his due research beforehand. He loves to read like scientific journals, and he's a fan of a lot of different types of reading. So you get like this, you get so many flavors of like historical context, scientific research, action movie, Die Hard flair. You get so much with his games, and you would get even more after this. But Metal Gear Solid is the one that it's the first Hideo Kojima game I ever played. So as you can see here, our goal, we have to get to the ventilation shaft, which this is just straight out of Die Hard. This is a clear Die Hard homage. And we are in these very claustrophobic vents, and we shift to first person. There's an item up ahead. There's a steel grate with enemy soldiers patrolling. He can't hear or see us, though. I believe that is a ration. So if you hold down... This game's inventory works... is unique too. Your kind of health and like items will be on the left trigger, and so you hold down the left trigger or L2 to bring them up. It's how you heal. It's how you like access the cardboard boxes, etc. And then the right trigger holds like all your weapons, which you'll accumulate weapons as you progress through the game. Like the early part, we have to get our handgun, SOP, or OSP, on-site procural. Like Solid Snake, when he begins this mission, does not have a gun. He has to find a gun in the base. So we are going the other way down the vents, and we see the rats, which is good. And we also get a call from McDonald Miller. I'm not going to spoil this part for you, but I will just say that, people lose their minds over BioShock and think, Ken Levine is some amazing auteur. And one of the plot twists in BioShock is just a straight up ripoff of this whole dynamic between Master Miller and Solid Snake. So if you've never played this game before, I probably spoiled it for you. If you've played BioShock and you know what I'm talking about. But I'm not going to spoil it for you. But so Master Miller is here as kind of like your survival expert. You call him when like there's something in the world where you might be stuck and you need to call on him for survival advice. So he's explained to you again like the Kojima jargon where he's a survival enthusiast, and he's telling you how these mice, like they burrow themselves down into the underground during the winter time to keep themselves warm. So you're getting like all of these crazy like little tidbits of knowledge and fun facts as you're on this incredible action mission to on behalf of the United States of America to save the world from these terrorists who have hijacked a Metal Gear capable of launching nuclear weapons. Not nuclear missiles. I always start these streams so nervous. It's like it takes me like 20 to 30 minutes to like get into like a flow state where I'm like I get outside of my mind and I'm not second guessing everything I'm saying. So if I sound stupid or like I'm kind of like saying contradictory things right now, just know that it'll probably get better in time. I'm just kind of like in the feeling out process right now, as it were. So yeah, you just keep following these rats through the ventilation shaft. Our goal here is to get to B2, so we can get the, well, first we have to find, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. First we need to find the DARPA chief. Remember, we have 2 goals, and the first goal is to rescue 2 corporate dudes. The first guy is the DARPA chief. So here's the colonel telling us that we can use the elevator to change floors because we have found the elevator. So our goal here is to find the elevator, which will take us down to B1 and B2 of this facility. And as you can see here still on the top right, we have this Soliton radar system, which shows the common enemies, the sentries' field of vision. As you can see there, I got really close to being spotted. It'll turn yellow instead of blue when they hear something or they're suspicious, and then red will be when you're just on full on alert, and then the Soliton radar will go away, and you will have to just kind of like intuitively figure out where the enemies are. So the game becomes harder when you get spotted because you no longer have access to the radar until the refresh rate goes down to 0. So we have options here. You can either go to B1 or B2. I choose to go to B1 first. Metal Gear Solid 2 would bring back this type, like Metal Gear. Oh, here's we'll get to that later. Here is Mei Ling, who, if you notice, is on a different frequency from. Oh yeah, we talk about her in the other episode. So we'll cut this part. You can see there, lean against the wall. And we see the DARPA chief. who is just hanging out. So we have to figure out how do we get to him, because we don't have a key card yet, so we can't access that level 1 key card door, but we will be able to. So here's the Colonel again calling us, being a little annoying, and imploring us to use the action button to climb the ladder. So a bit of fourth wall breaking here. We'll get into this more in Metal Gear Solid 2, like I was saying earlier, with the with his games being very literary, on top of being like very cinematic and gamey. His games are also very postmodern, and we'll get into that more with Metal Gear Solid 2, but there is a lot of fourth wall breaking going on in these games, and even in the first one. I wouldn't call any of these games really... I guess I would call Metal Gear Solid 1 modernist, in the sense that it's pretty... I mean, for a Metal Gear Solid game or a Hideo Kojima game, it's pretty straightforward. You probably, if you've never seen a Metal Gear Solid game and you've seen what you've seen so far, you'll be like, what? This is not straightforward at all. But trust me, it gets wilder and wilder and wilder. But it's such a fun ride, and I sincerely, it's my favorite video game series of all time, and I think like genuinely Metal Gear Solid 1 is my favorite game of all time because it changed my life. So we're under these grates here. In the ventilation shaft, and the Colonel is calling us again to indicate that the DARPA chief signal is close. So I forgot here, there were a couple of Easter eggy cutscenes we could have gotten if I remembered to look in first person. So now I'm doing that, and I'm looking down, and this initiates the cutscene with the DARPA chief. There's also a woman in here, which we haven't seen yet, but she will become very important very soon. So this is the DARPA chief, and this is where things really start to get weird and interesting, and we're kind of off to the races.
Donald Anderson, right?
You here to save me, huh? What's your outfit?
I'm the pawn they sent here to save your worthless butt.
Your worthless butt.
Really?
These games are really funny too.
You don't look like
These faces, like. A lot of people say PlayStation graphics have not aged well, but I think this looks incredible. There's like I don't know, like whatever the opposite of an uncanniness is. It's just like, it's so jaggedly, aggressively pixelated.
They say if they don't accede to their demands, they'll launch a nuclear weapon.
sweet Jesus.
Is it possible?
It's possible. They could launch a nuke.
So you notice here, next door in the jail cells is a red-headed woman
Warheads. They shouldn't have access to a missile.
who is now listening in on the conversation. So we have a lot going on here cinematically. We now know that there is a woman next in the adjacent cell who is listening in on this conversation, this very intense conversation about how the world is going to change with this Metal Gear, which has the ability to launch a nuclear missile from anywhere. And now we get some insights into Metal Gear.
Can't be.
So this is the first visual reveal of Metal Gear Rex.
We've had a couple of run-ins in the past. So that's the reason you were here.
Very obvious Gojira or Godzilla inspiration too from Kojima with the Metal Gear
I had heard the Metal Gear
design, and especially in Metal Gear Solid 2 when we get to Metal Gear Ray, and it shrieks literally just like Godzilla. So like the Metal Gear project was a joint project between DARPA and Arms Tech, which the Arms Tech president is the second guy held hostage that we have to find after this dude.
Revolution.
Rex has fallen into the hands of terrorists.
So there was a revolution, according to the DARPA chief, in which these 6 terrorists have now have overtaken the base. So there's kind of like this terrorist revolution going on where they now have control and they have the key. But or do they have the key to launch? We don't know. We're finding this out right now. There's the iconic soldier. I think that's Johnny Sasaki saying, "Shut up in there, will you?" And then Donald Anderson gives him like a weird wave away with his arm, like, "Oh, it's nothing." And I always thought that was funny that the soldier just kind of like complied and just walked away, like, "Oh, okay, it's nothing."
Oh, you mean PAL? Yes, of course.
We get more jargon here. There's a PAL key set up, so we have to put 2 different passwords. I love this shit so much.
Yes, Baker knows one, and I know one.
So the ArmsTech president knows one of the codes, and the DARPA chief knows one of the codes. So that's why it's so important that we talk to them, because they hold the codes.
Or there can be no launch. But they found out my password.
But they found out the DARPA chief's password, which is not good, because that means now the terrorists have at least one of the codes in order to launch a nuclear weapon to destroy the world or do whatever they want to do with it. And it was Psycho Mantis in particular who so Psycho Mantis is able to read people's minds.
They'll be able to launch a nuke anytime.
He's also able to like levitate above the ground. He is probably like one of the most ridiculous aspects of Metal Gear Solid 1.
They were designed by ArmsTech, the system developers, as an emergency override. Even without the passwords, you can just insert the card keys and engage the safety lock.
And if I do that?
Yes, you can stop the launch.
That card key.
So where are the keys?
Baker should have them. Listen, you need 3 card keys. There are 3 different slots to put them in. You need to insert a card into each one of them.
So we need to get these 3 card keys in order to stop the launch from happening.
Somewhere in the 2nd floor basement.
2nd floor basement?
I heard the guards say they moved him to an area that has a lot of electronics.
The ArmsTech president is in B2. So DARPA chief is in B1. The ArmsTech president is in B2. We need to find him so he can give us more information onto where to look for these 3 card keys that we need in order to stop the nuclear launch. And then we get his key card, so now we can open up level 1 doors, and this is called a PAN card.
Personal area network, huh?
Personal area network.
Transmits data using the salts in your body as the transmission medium. As you approach the door's security devices, they'll read the data stored in the card.
And the doors will open automatically. Gotcha. Okay, I'm gonna get you out of here.
So yeah, as you can see here, we go back and forth between gameplay and cutscenes, and
From your bosses or anyone?
so far it would definitely seem that we're doing more watching than we're doing playing. But that's kind of Hideo's point, is like he wanted to make a game. It wasn't just a game, but something that was like really, like, you're kind of the director of this experience, and he would flesh this out more in MGS2 and MGS3. So here we go. Here's one of the many plot twists in this game. The DARPA chief just suddenly, when he's about to reveal something to us, has a heart attack and dies. Meryl, who is the redheaded woman next door, is banging incessantly on the door. Chaos ensues, and Solid Snake checks his pulse, and he's dead.
Dead.
And then we got to call the colonel, because it's like, what the heck is what is going on?
Chief, what happened?
I don't
So we need some reassurance from Naomi here to try to understand what's happening. Nobody knows what's going on.
You hiding something from me?
And once again, Snake believes that the colonel is hiding something from him, which will be a prevalent theme throughout this entire game.
You want me to believe that you're in charge of this?
The colonel insists he doesn't know shit, though.
I told you.
So, should we believe him? Should we not? Who knows?
I'm just here as your support.
The Secretary of Defense is in control here. The Secretary of Defense of, like, the United States is in control of this mission, which I thought was very, like, a really cool real-world touch. Because it's like, you don't get this in video games where you feel like you're actually role playing like an actual United States soldier. Now we're stuck in this jail cell, and we will be stuck in this jail cell later on in the game, in a part of the game later on that I won't show here. We're only going to be doing the first like hour and a half or so of the game. So the door automatically opens, and we get yet another cutscene. There's poor shut up in there Willia Johnny Sasaki, stripped down to his boxers with the sensor, pixelated sensor sign, and then
Liquid?
this is a soldier with a feminine voice.
Don't move.
Snake thinks she's Liquid, or sorry, Meryl thinks he's Liquid because of the similarities in face, because they're twins. So this, spoilers, this is Meryl, the redheaded woman we just saw in the jail cell. She has escaped as well, and she has
They're rookies' eyes if I ever saw them.
donned the clothes of Johnny Sasaki.
You talk too much.
You haven't even taken the safety off, rookie.
I told you I'm no rookie.
You're not one of them, are you?
So for me, this was when the game was just firing on all cylinders, because not only do you have this like really interesting,
Get the hell out of here.
multi-dimensional soldier spy who is like very talented, but he's not just a dumb video game protagonist. He has very real emotions. He's very intelligent. He's very empathetic. Or he's like a grouch too, though. He's not like entirely empathetic. And now we meet this woman who kind of becomes this supporting character who plays a really big part of the story. So we're not alone on this mission. So this kind of reminded me of like an RPG where it's like, okay, are we like building up a party or something? Like, what's going on? We're not just alone here. So this scene here is just our first like kind of just balls to the wall, balls out shooting section, where we find the SOCOM pistol. But if you just use the pistol here on normal mode, you're gonna die, which I think I end up, I don't know if I died here and I reloaded a save file or what, but the quote-unquote correct way to do this is to, I like to get up close and punch the guys. And you can see there, you heal with, you gotta bring up the L2 cursor. And I'm completely out of ammo. So we have no idea what's going on here now. The DARPA chief has died of a heart attack. This woman in a evil soldier's clothes is she on our side? Is she not on our side? We don't know. We're just trying to shoot ourselves out of this situation. Yeah, this kills me, so I have to start over. But that's okay, because now I can show you how to actually get through this encounter. This game gradually becomes easier the more you play, because every time you defeat a boss, your health bar goes up. Kind of like an RPG, you level up, so to speak. So I'll just spoil it. In the scene later on, you're once again in a jail cell with the DARPA chief, but it is not actually the DARPA chief. Like, that person that is dead right now is not the DARPA chief. It is one of the six bosses named, if you remember from earlier when the colonel was giving us the rundown of the Sinister Six, one of them was Decoy Octopus. So technically that was the first boss fight against Decoy Octopus there, where it was just one long cutscene in which he was trying to like get information out of Snake, but then because of Snake's nanomachines and something that Naomi, spoilers again, I'm just gonna spoil the shit out of this game if you haven't played it. Naomi has cruel intentions with Snake because of something he did in Metal Gear 2, which, like, yeah, this game is a sequel to Metal Gear. There were two Metal Gear games that came out in the late 80s to early 90s. There was like a Nintendo Metal Gear that like isn't technically canon, even though Hideo Kojima directed it or developed it. But in Metal Gear 2, and this will all make sense after the Ocelot fight, I will give some context about like what in the hell is actually going on here. But yeah, so Dr. Naomi Hunter injects Solid Snake with nanomachines that have this virus where certain people that he comes into contact with, they will just have heart attacks and die. And one of them happens to be not DARPA Chief Donald Anderson, but Decoy Octopus, who is posing as the DARPA Chief because he is, that's his super ability as kind of like this mutant terrorist. So we get this weird scene where we zoom in on Meryl's butt. This game is a bit sexist, but you know, it is not without its charm. And there is that disclaimer. There is a disclaimer at the beginning of all these games. So this gives us the explanation. So Ocelot, who is the Russian guy who's obsessed with Westerns, accidentally killed the DARPA chief when he was interrogating him, trying to get his code. And then Psycho Mantis has the idea of using Decoy Octopus to pose as the DARPA chief. She's very aggressive here. Kind of reminds me of, I can't remember her name, but the character in Guts who, Guts like says she's too much of a woman, and that's why she's like, her feelings are exploited on the battlefield, but this like intrinsically motivates her to become a stronger soldier somehow. I promise it's not as sexist as it is sexist, but it does end up motivating her. And there is a kind of similar dynamic in this game between Solid Snake and Meryl, which I find their relationship to be one of the best parts of Metal Gear Solid. This game overall is just, I'm getting really excited now that I'm getting into my workflow, and I'm just like getting into like talking about this game because it is one of the most, I could talk about this game for hours. So we get more explanation, or lack of, where Solid Snake is, what the hell, who is this Psycho Mantis character? So we need to save. So I'm going to continue the ritual of saving by calling Mei Ling on frequency 140.96. As you can see, we're 37 minutes into the game now. And now we get a quote from Lao Tse. I'm not saying that right. He who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. Which she gives us very practical gameplay advice, where if you don't need an item, you don't have to get it. Which is like the antithesis of how I play Dark Souls games, where it's like, if I see an item, I have to get it, because once you have it, you have it. So here's Master Miller, quote-unquote Master Miller, giving us very obvious survival advice. And then he's just like, just give Campbell advice.
Psycho Mantis has the power to read people's minds. He got the DARPA chief's detonation code. Hurry up or he'll get Baker's code.
And then Dr. Naomi Hunter here reiterating that Psycho Mantis is able to read minds. Like these Foxhound terrorists are, they're bad news. They're a rough bit of business.
Snake, you've got to understand. I'm just the middleman in this operation.
I'm trying to think, do all of them have superpowers? Like, Ocelot doesn't have superpowers, he's just really fucking cool. So now our directive is, if you remember from all those cutscenes ago, to go to the second floor basement to try to rescue the Arms Tech president, who has the second key to Metal Gear Rex. So now we're going to make our way down to B2. Completely different gameplay experience from B1, where we were kind of like John McClaning it through those ventilation shafts. So if you notice here, there are no enemies in this area, but there is a puzzle we need to do. So we have the level 1 key card now, which I just now realized I have. So we can go in all the doors that are marked 1. So we get C4 there, which is essential for what we need to do next. What we need to do is find paper-thin walls in this area and explode them with the C4, so we can find Kenneth Anderson, not the DARPA chief. Kenneth Baker, sorry, not Kenneth Anderson. That's the DARPA chief. So there you go. I have on the R2 trigger there, you have all your weapons. your chaff grenades, your hand grenades, your stun grenades, your pistols, and later on it'll be like your automatic weapons. MGS2 and MGS3 especially will really go hog wild on the amount of weapons you can have. So I'm knocking on the doors here. So there, if you listen carefully, there will be a distinct difference in sound. So you see this little blue wall here. So you notice the sound is more hollow. So we know now to equip our C4, we plant it with the square button, I believe, and then we run away and we hit circle to explode that. You see now we have an opening. So this area is pretty chill because there aren't any enemies. That's a throwback to I think Metal Gear 2, where there's these open floor panels you can fall right through. Like, it's funny because there's like, this is B2, so this is like below this like surface is just like the core of the earth, just like instant death, like an instant abyss. So I accidentally blew myself up there, but that's okay. We'll just reload back. The checkpoint in this game is pretty friendly, which again is kind of surprising for a 1998 game, because we've been conditioned with like Resident Evil and such that we have to like manually save. You do have to save in this game, but it does checkpoint you like a modern game. This does feel like a modern game in a lot, especially with the checkpointing system. Should have checked, but I don't know if that C4, if we have to get all that C4 again, or if the game remembers that we got it all. I'm not sure. So maybe the checkpointing isn't as friendly as I thought, but it's still pretty good. So I love the design decision here to not have any enemies, because it kind of makes you feel a little unsettled. And also gives you time to kind of like think and kind of just ruminate about like all that is going on here. Because if you're playing this game for the first time, especially as I was as like a preteen in 1998, 1999, like I had never played anything. I hadn't even watched anything like this sophisticated. I didn't watch Twin Peaks until I was, way older. So like in many respects, this was one of the most adult things I had ever experienced as a young lad. I had seen movies like Halloween and The Terminator and like Nightmare on Elm Street, but I don't know. I feel like this is operating on another level, with all due respect to all those movies. Terminator and Halloween and all three of those movies I mentioned are all like personal favorites of mine. Not to say they're not mature and doing their own things, but I just feel like this is operating on a completely different level. And this is where like I'll talk about this a lot more in Metal Gear Solid 2, but this is where like video games as a medium, I feel like, has kind of surpassed movies and kind of become the new form of book. It's like very literary. So now you notice we're in a different area of B2. The radar we cannot see because it's jamming. So I equip my SOCOM because I have no idea what's going on. The game has conditioned us to be uncertain right now because we're like, okay, where are the enemies? It's very like eerily quiet in here. But it's actually pretty simple. All we have to do is equip more C4 and blow up these walls to get closer to Kenneth Baker. And I'm going to spoil something quickly here. Another thing I'm going to spoil is that Kenneth Baker looks just like, very similar in dress and appearance to Fat Man, one of the bosses in Metal Gear Solid 2. Like, Kojima loves to remix certain aspects of the Metal Gear Solid series, which I think is fascinating. So here we go. There is Kenneth Baker, the Arms Tech president. He is hooked up to a bunch of explosives.
He's alive. You're the Arms Tech president, Kenneth Baker, right?
Bit of a pathetic man.
Don't worry. I'm here.
Walks with a cane. I'm not to say that's like a bad thing. I don't know why I said pathetic. Well, he's a rich, like millionaire type. So, he's got that going against him. And we get this really cool cutscene. Somebody shooting us and Solid Snake evading it in the most badass way possible. And here we go. We get our proper introduction to Revolver Ocelot, one of the coolest, most enigmatic characters in the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise. He will be a common thread in both in this game, the second game, and the third game. He's Russian, but he's obsessed with Western culture, like Western in the sense like 19th century, like cowboys and Indians type Western culture. He like revolvers is his weapon of choice. He's constantly twirling them in like some magnanimous flourish. It's amazing. He's incredible, and he's also old as fuck. Like he has this long flowing silver hair. He has a handlebar mustache. He sounds like he's 70 years old, yet he's like as nimble as Solid Snake. And here we go. We're in our first proper boss fight of the game. So it's kind of just like you run around the arena and you try to shoot him. It's kind of like a Tom and Jerry episode. Tim Rogers used that comparison, so that's not an original thought from me. I'm stealing that from Tim Rogers. I had a hard time with this the first time I encountered this fight. It took me a few tries. And if you notice too, Baker has a health bar. If you run into or if you shoot those wires, Baker will die and it'll be game over. So you have to not only kill or temporarily take down Ocelot, you have to also be mindful of Baker. And then Ocelot's just kind of like taunting you during this fight and just like philosophizing, talking about feeling alive on the battlefield and how many bullets he has left, like before he has to reload. Like there's some really cool indicators, like gameplay indicators that Kojima put in here. Again, people love to chide this franchise for not being like a video game, but there is a ton of like little flavor context type stuff that Kojima like litters his game with. Just like an abundance of riches, both cinematically and from a gameplay perspective. Because when he is reloading, he's kind of he stops moving, so it gives you an opportunity to catch up with him and shoot him. Here, I think I ran into Baker there. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that is good for the footy, so I can show you what it looks like when Baker blows up. Which, did I need to show that? I don't know, but let's just go right back in here and try it again. (1998) there were a lot of really good years for video games. Like you could, but 1998 in particular, like you had Metal Gear Solid 1, you had Half-Life 1, you had Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. There's a few others I'm not mentioning here, but those are three like intensely influential video games. And not all of them came out on PlayStation. Like Half-Life 1 was a PC game, and of course Ocarina of Time was a Nintendo 64 game. I think the 64 is like pretty, I don't know, like is it overrated now? Like I feel like people are pretty much like in agreement that it was kind of a shitty system. Maybe that's a controversial statement. Maybe I've just lost a sub saying that. But yeah, with all due respect to the Nintendo 64, Ocarina of Time is definitely one of its best games, and that's not saying much because 64 is not that great. I'm playing this on a PlayStation 5. My hope in the future is to get a Mister, which like does emulation for, I think they're up to PlayStation 1 now, and one of my goals in 2025 is to do a video. If you saw my Astrobot video, I want to do a video called the 100 PlayStation games that are better than Astrobot. And I plan on either, I don't know if I've decided if it's going to be just PlayStation 1 games that I'm going to do, or if I'm going to do PlayStation 2 games as well. the top 100 PlayStation 1/PlayStation 2 games that are better than Astrobot. Metal Gear Solid 1 would definitely be one of them, and if I decide to include PS2 games, and Sons of Liberty and Snake Eater will almost definitely be part of that list as well. For me, like, an interesting game is oftentimes far more important to like weighing the quality of a game over whether or not a game is quote unquote fun. Because like I feel like fun is only one quality of a video game. You know what I mean? Like if you're watching this video, you probably are have an interest in video games that goes beyond just, you know, this mindless escape from your mundane reality. Like, no, like the best video games like tap into like your deepest fears and insecurities and like the things that might be mundane about your life. Video games can be mundane, but like in a way that is kind of affirming, if that makes sense. So if you see here, we've taken down Ocelot, and now we get the introduction. We get Ninja. Now, I spoiled the shit earlier out of... There's a lot going on here, but really quick, in Metal Gear 2, which was the game that was before Metal Gear Solid, Snake and this guy named Gray Fox, who is this ninja here, they were friends, but then they became enemies, and they had like a fight to the death, and Snake killed him, or he thought he did. He fatally wounded him, but he was the ninja was saved, and now he is confined to this life like in a cybernetic skull suit. And Naomi Hunter has a relationship with him, and that is with the ninja, so that is why she is trying to get her revenge on Snake. And Snake has no idea who he is.
Can you talk?
But it'll obviously be revealed as we get deeper into the game. I'm spoiling this because I'm hoping like this will entice you to play more of this game after seeing me play it, because I'm not going to do the whole game.
Answer my question. What about your...
And now we get
There's no time.
another intensive dialogue scene, this time with the Arms Tech president instead of the DARPA chief.
It's not like I didn't fight. I managed to resist Psycho Mantis's mind probe.
He couldn't...
So he resisted Psycho Mantis' mind probe, unlike, well, Donald Anderson resisted it too, but he ended up dying by accident because Ocelot killed him. He's a psychopath.
Secret codes has it.
Even the DARPA chief?
Of course.
But the DARPA chief said Mantis got his code by reading his mind.
Are you sure you heard him right?
Yeah, I'm sure. In that case, how did they get your code?
I never had any training on how to resist torture.
It looks like he had some fun with you, all right.
So yeah, he is a little pathetic. God bless him.
Every second of it.
What happened to your arm?
He broke it.
So yeah, Ocelot is also
Sliced off.
loves torturing people, and there is a torture scene between him and Solid Snake later on in this game, which is quite difficult if you're trying to get a certain ending. But we're not going to be talking really about Otacon in this game. We'll be talking about him in Metal Gear Solid 2, because for this playthrough, we won't be getting to Otacon or Hal Emmerich.
Killed the DARPA chief. He had a heart attack or something.
A heart attack? Oh, don't be a fool.
Anyway, the terrorists have both codes now.
Those boys are totally insane. They wouldn't hesitate to launch.
I agree, but what do they really want?
Oh, who knows? Maybe they're like us in the arms industry, always looking forward to the next good war.
Well, I'm not gonna let these maniacs start a war today. You still have the card keys?
Card keys.
So yeah, as you can see here,
I heard you had...
Kojima is very political, and he is a pacifist. These games are not just like stupid action games. They are about something. They are... He's trying to convey here, you know, how, you know, in the 20th century, the proliferation of war, you know, gave so many people like a sense of purpose and meaning, that like life itself kind of became meaningless with like all of these world wars that were happening. And Metal Gear Solid 4 would go into this in like the most dystopian manner possible. Like, if you were to rank the main line Metal Gear Solid games, Metal Gear Solid 4 would probably be my least favorite. But it's because it's like this kind of depressing neoconservative, like, it feels very like post 9/11 in the most depressing way possible, where like the world has become completely oversaturated with war, and you have these different private military companies or PMCs that are just fighting all of these proxy wars, and now like the entire purpose of existence is just to like fight these endless wars so that like the capital of funding more money for more weapons and more war products, it's just like a never-ending cycle of banality and death. So here's Kenneth Baker introducing us to or getting us primed for Hal Emmerich, aka Otacon, who is the scientist slash engineer of this game, which, like Meryl, gives the game another very interesting flavor of now this, you know, super soldier spy Solid Snake is now in a, like, has to get through this game with the help of an engineer who was responsible in helping create Metal Gear. And the game will clearly get into that and the, you know, the kind of like ethical ramifications of that. See here, the amount of, I love this footage too, this archived B-roll footage, which we'll get a lot more of in Metal Gear Solid 2 and especially in Metal Gear Solid 3, where it's just like, you know, 10 out of 10. All three of these games are 10 out of 10s. But yeah, like this footage is absolutely incredible stuff.
Not even doing a good job of storing it. Many of the drums are corroded, with nuclear waste seeping out of them. Unbelievable. Not only that, but several
Just talking here about like all the waste and destruction that like nuclear war leaves, you know, in its wake. Again, like, this is so wild for like a 1998 video game. There were games that were like talking about this before, but not in like this much of a streamlined package. Like Kojima was a bit of a household name before Metal Gear Solid, but this was a game where he really like exploded in like cultural cachet and relevance. Like before this, he was known for, like, he had done Snatcher, that was probably his biggest one, and Metal Gear, of course, and then he did a game called Police Knots that came out in 1994, which I've never played, but I don't think it ever got English translation. It does on emulation, but it's one of the games I do plan on checking out if I ever decide to get, you know, proper emulation, which I hope no corpos are listening in on this right now. Again, here we go with like the jargon, where the Armstech president is just giving us all of this exposition and all of this context, you know, about the Air Force and the, you know, the Army and Metal Gear as a system. And Metal Gear was developed as a black project because it was a very secretive project, you know, funded by the CIA and the Pentagon. Well, technically funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars. Not even those bleeding heart liberals. I love that phrase, bleeding heart liberal. So you can tell here, Kenneth Baker is definitely not a liberal.
Here, this is what you came for, right? What's that?
And then Snake again outing himself as one of those bleeding heart liberals. I don't know if I call him a liberal. I definitely call him a leftist though. Like he's I don't know. Like I'm interested in learning more about Solid Snake's politics, because he hates his country, even though he's a soldier for the United States. Very reluctantly though.
I'll give you my card too. It'll open up all security level 2 doors.
Can you walk?
No, you go on without me. They got my password. They don't want anything else.
So now we got security level 2 card that can open level 2 doors. So we're getting a very nice sense of progression here. We've beaten our first boss. Our health bar has leveled up. We're getting higher numbered key cards to get into newer areas. You should feel very like a great sense of progression right now.
You should ask
Naomi.
You've got to stop them. If it goes public, my company and I are finished.
What? Doesn't Metal Gear use
Up,
current
and then we were about to get another big reveal about Metal Gear and its current technology. And what is this? Another, could it be another heart attack? So this isn't Decoy Octopus this time. This is actually Kenneth Baker. I'm not entirely sure, because I haven't beaten this game in a while, like what the similarity is between Decoy Octopus and Kenneth Baker and why they both had heart attacks while in close proximity to Solid Snake's corrupted nanomachines. But yeah, now we got another. The two hostages that Solid Snake was sent in to rescue are now dead.
Colonel, are you listening? Now he's dead too.
I have no idea.
Don't lie to me.
It looked like another heart attack, but
See, Naomi knows more than she's letting on here.
lots of drugs that can
And
cause
Snake's
heart
worried about
attack
the Colonel and what he's
overdose.
hiding this
For
whole
example,
time,
potassium
you know.
chloride or dioxides, but we won't be able to tell.
No, the
without
Colonel
those-
wants Snake and Meryl to work together.
You and Meryl to work together.
Can I trust her?
More than you can trust me. Get in contact with her.
Snake, there's a lot of electrical interference coming from there. It should be okay if you do burst transmission like us, but
So we gotta get back above ground so we can get our
radar.
radar back, but also so we can call Meryl.
Naomi, what the hell?
We have to find out her frequency, though.
Member of Foxhound?
Because she has a codec, too. We just don't know what her frequency
We
is.
have no one like that in our unit.
Is that right?
Snake, I'm counting on you.
So I'm a little, stressed out. So I'm going to call... Oh, I'm going to go into that emulation menu by accident, which I keep doing. Which it's funny because it's X to get out of that menu, but it's... we'll get into it later. So we're going to call Master Miller again.
First, the dark.
Not very helpful, as usual. Master Miller would... Like, he's not in the other Metal Gear Solid games, but he does play a really big role in Metal Gear Solid V, The Phantom Pain. And yes, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm calling it Metal Gear Solid V instead of Metal Gear Solid 5 because there's like an actual storyline reason why it's called Metal Gear Solid V. And maybe one day we'll get into that. Maybe we won't. Who knows? Life is just full of unpredictability, and that's genuinely what I love about it.
Yeah, and on top of that, they both.
Wasn't her frequency written on the back of the CD case? So I'll just end on this and then we'll end the episode. So when I first played this game, I rented it from Mammoth Video, which was about a mile walk from my parents' childhood home. So I remember, like, I was so glad they would have the games available to rent, and they would have the jewel case, the CD case, in front of it. So after this scene, because I was so excited to keep playing, I stopped playing, I saved the game, and then I rode my bike as fast as possible to Mammoth Video so I could grab the jewel case of Metal Gear Solid 1, look at the back, and find Meryl's codec frequency, which, yeah, this is before I had the internet. I had to figure this out in the real world. Crazy.